This is the IFF TV podcast.
Hello, welcome to Irish Football Fan TV. This is the League of Ireland show. I'm joined by Gary Spain. We've had 3 series of games since we last spoke to each other. I suppose we'll kick things off in the Premier Division. The game that caught everybody's attention, the game I was at in Richmond Park, was St Patrick's Athletic 0, Derry City 4, and it was the Derry City show, really. Great performance by Derry, really poor by St Pats, but they were just, in the first 20 minutes to half an hour, they just caused their own problems throughout the game. They were playing around at the back, they looked nervous, they were getting pressed right in by Derry, and then Derry were just clinical in their chances. There was one goal, I think, that was given offside as well, which may have stood in another day, so it could have even been more, but they blew St Pat's away in front of their home fans. Matt Smith, obviously, he breaks the deadlock, and he was getting a bit of stick for whatever reason. Obviously, he went to Derry from Pats in the summer, before the season started. But it was no means like he wasn't like a cult hero or anything like that. So for him to get a bit of stick was a bit mad, but he ended up celebrating, doing a knee slide in front of the fans for it. And then Jamie McGonigal got a lovely double. The second one kind of came from messing around at the back again by Pats, and then a ball came across, and it was between McGonigal and Ronan Boyce really to get that second goal. And then Brandon Kavanagh with a lovely weighted pass for Jamie McGonigal to get in and get his third goal. Then it was 3-0 at half time. You felt the game was over. You felt like Pats weren't really showing a whole lot. And then, players like Darragh Burns and stuff came off, which he looked like the only player who was actually going to do any harm to Derry, but he came off in the second half. Cameron Dunnigan gets an unbelievable goal from distance after, I think it was Will Patchen. He'd carried the ball into a bit of space, got them up the field, and then just laid it back to Dunnigan. He had all the time in the world to just pick it out. Side-footed strike from distance in off the post, and it was game, set and match then at that point. But as I said, Pats never laced a glove on Derry City, and Derry have rightly bounced back, and they're right at the foot of the table and enjoying themselves again.
Yeah, it was a real statement win, I thought, for Derry to come down to Dublin. And because I know they've got a bit of a bee in their bonnet and they feel they don't get the recognition they deserve by the Dublin media. But that was a real statement win to come down and absolutely blow Pats away. Because, we talked about it. They had made such a fantastic start. They were 6 points clear. And then they dropped it. They fell away a bit. The home defeat by Shells, the draw with Drogheda, wasn't it? Rovers gained 5 points on them. And suddenly you're thinking, the title challenge is going to fall away, but actually it's gone the other way now. And whatever about blowing UCD away in the Brandywell, which they didn't have such a good record against in previous years, but to come down to Richmond Park and to put 4 past Pats, that's a real statement win. And you mentioned guys like Brandon Kavanagh. I believe he was absolutely superb, and he's playing really well lately. And he always had a lot of promise. I saw him quite a bit at Bray, and maybe he didn't get the credit there because, look, Brave looked a really good side for the last couple of years, but a issue was scoring goals, and he was setting up chances for them. But he's gone to the Brandywell, and he's been a real star. Jamie McGonigal, what can you say? He's probably now becoming, we were talking about Pat Hoban a few times, but is Jamie McGonigal now the best striker in the league? Hard to argue. And, well, what can I say? A massive 3 points and a real statement victory. And they'll have one eye on the trip to Tala now in a couple of weeks. I know there's games to come before that, but that will be an interesting one.
Yeah, well, I looked at the size difference between, other than Brandon Kavanagh, but the size difference between Derry and, say, Pats was, it was like men against boys at times. Just like, that's the way Pats are. They've got young, good, talented players, but the Derry players, like I'm looking at Patching, and he's a big boy up close. Boyce, another big boy. Patrick McElhenney, these are big lads, and they don't get shoved off the ball much. And I think that's what was wrong with Pats, was just Derry were just in every way. They were stronger, they were more physical, they were more technical. You know, they didn't give them anything really. And honestly, when the first goal went in, you felt as though Derry were just going to take control, and that's what they did. And you know, they're really starting to show that they're well able to cope with the pressure of this title race, especially bouncing back from the way they did. The defeat at Shells, and then obviously the draw, which you wouldn't have said was a massive negative against Drogheda, but it was still a draw. Probably felt like points wasted for them or points dropped. So for them to come back and bounce back the way they have now, I spoke to Rory Higgins, and he was quite happy. But he was kind of at the same time saying, you know, we're not going to get carried away. We are literally just kind of going to just take it game by game. And as boring as that sounds, but that's the way we have to do it, was basically what he said, you know. And he was delighted. Matty Smith was delighted as well. It's the Derry lads all seemed delighted to get the win there, because don't forget, that was the team that were sitting in third at the time, just behind them in the league, or just behind. They were underneath Rovers, but they were third in the league. Pats were at the time, and they bashed them 4-0.
Yeah, I mean, we had been talking, could one of the teams, it's a 2-horse race now, I think, without any shadow of a doubt. But we had been talking, could the likes of Pats, maybe Dundalk, maybe even Sligo Rovers, make a challenge? And I could be wrong. Maybe they could still yet, but I don't see it. It's very hard to see. I think the top two are probably in a league of their own at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, and we'll come on to the other side of the title race, Shamrock Rovers. Just before we actually speak about them, we know at the moment that Stephen Bradley is actually in advanced talks with Lincoln City, so you know it could be a case that it's not definite that he's going to go, but there is talks ongoing and they are escalating. So if he was to go, Glenn Cronin and Stephen McPhail seem like likely that they're going to go ahead with him if that is the case. But what are your thoughts initially on him going there if it is to happen? Do you think that's a good move for him, and do you think it's a good move for Irish football if he can, if he can do well there? It might open a few doors for other Irish managers.
Yeah, it's a tough one, Paul, because I know there was. I was reading Independent. I think it was Dan MacDonald today, doing the figures, and I mean Lincoln have far bigger budget, even though they finished 17th in League One. I don't know what it says about Irish football, because Shamrock Rovers are our biggest club, and they have been. And he was comparing the figures, the budgets, the wage bill, the number of staff, and it's a bit mind-blowing for a club. With all due respects to Lincoln City, I think Dan said the last time they were in the second tier was in the 1960s. And so, and I can see, I imagine Stephen, he's still a young man and a young manager. He probably has ambitions to manage at a higher level. And even if Lincoln aren't a higher level, I appreciate if you do well at Lincoln, you can get a bigger job in the Championship or even in the Premier League, which I imagine he has ambitions to manage there. So I can see why it's attractive from that perspective. But then I look at Shamrock Rovers, and they're our champions. He's been champions. They're going to be playing in the Champions League. And now actually it's pretty certain they're going to be seeded in the Champions League, which is absolutely huge. And that's a massive, massive deal for Rovers, because that greatly increases their chances of group stage football. We can go into that later if you want. But the opportunities that presents, but as we've talked before, we don't really have a football industry in this country. And if our biggest club by far is significantly smaller than a team like Lincoln City, who's, as we said, 17th in League One, and in reality, a bit of a yo-yo club between League One and League Two. It wasn't that long ago that they were actually out of the Football League completely. So what does it say? In some ways, it's a compliment to the league that he's actually been recognised, that he's actually done well. He's won our last two titles. But I suppose if you look at it the other way, we lose players to League One. Georgie Kelly scored for Rotherham at the weekend. Chidozie Ogbene went over. He's now at Rotherham as well. Ronan Curtis at Portsmouth. I mean, so we are losing our better players to League One or possibly higher, but certainly. So, yeah, I don't know what it says about, maybe it's a bit of a wake-up call that certainly those figures were a bit of a wake-up call to me. But then I have a friend in Germany. He was telling me about his club, which are now in the fourth regional league in Germany, Preben Munster, the German Munster. And their budget would also be significantly higher than Shamrock Rovers. But then they get a lot of money from the German FA. They get a lot of TV money. There's no TV money in our league. There's very little prize money in our league. So that can make a huge difference. And really, our clubs, the main source of income for our bigger clubs like Rovers is Europe. And that's why Europe is so massive. But, I mean, Stephen Bradley could be preparing with Lincoln City in League One pre-season instead of playing in the Champions League or managing a side in the Champions League. But it does, to me, look like if he's offered the job, he'll take it. That's what it looks like anyway.
Yeah, I think it's. I think at the end of the day, I think it comes down to money. The salary that he would be on would be very ludicrous. I was going to say lucrative. You know, so if he is to go, like, fair play to him. He's 37 years of age. If you want to go and try, see how he can do over there, you get to bring your coaching staff with you. So there's talk of a 5-year deal apparently. So if there's a chance to let him grow something like he's done at Rovers, he's shown that if you give him time, they can come good. He's one of the best operators, if not the best operator in the League of Ireland in terms of how he manages teams and how his side plays and how they're so adaptable and they can play in so many different ways. So I think I said last year he's definitely the best manager in the League of Ireland, and the way they went on that run, that unbeaten run, I think they beat their own unbeaten run, if I'm not corrected. And yeah, they Shamrock Rovers, he's built a brilliant side there where they're expected to go and win everything every single season, and I think he's kind of put that pressure and expectancy on himself as well. And I think he's handled things quite well. I think he's took everything in his stride, albeit the first few years didn't go too well for him. But over the last couple of years, I have to say his side have been excellent. Maybe underperformed, maybe a little bit in Europe, and could have probably got to higher rounds and stuff like that, or maybe group stages. But who knows? They may still do that. But obviously, if he's to go, it wouldn't be with him. But it'd be interesting. If he's gone and then who comes in to replace him, that'll be interesting as well. But as far as I know, Lincoln have, I was speaking with a friend of mine earlier who's an agent, and he was obviously playing football, and we were playing with Dan McDonald as well, and they were both kind of saying how Lincoln are quite respectful, and they respect the Irish market, and they buy a good bit from the Irish market, and a lot of their scouts seem to be at a lot of games, looking at Irish talent and so on. So it's not really that surprising when you kind of hear things like that. He also said that Georgie Kelly was on their podcast, and he spoke about how Lincoln robbed their S&C coach. Apparently Rotherham had an unbelievable strength and conditioning coach, and Lincoln came in and basically took him, and Rotherham were absolutely fuming about it. So apparently there's money there. So because they're obviously Rotherham are just after going up there, so there's money there. They seem like they're happy enough to go and spend it. I don't know what that says about our league, but if he does go, I think he's been an incredible servant to the League of Ireland for the football he's played and the players he's brought in, like players like Jack Byrne and stuff like that. We really did get to see good nights of him playing football, and some brilliant stuff, to be fair. And if you're a neutral watching that, I know we have to be a neutral kind of talking about games like that, but Shamrock Rovers have been a joy to watch, I'd have to say, especially in the last probably 3 years.
Yeah, they have been a joy to watch. I don't think it's about money, Paul, actually. I think it's about ambition, and I think either...
Well, obviously, there's that, but I think money plays a big part of it.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's either to bring Lincoln up to at least the championship, or who knows, maybe they have ambitions of the Premier League. I mean, I know the Cowleys brought them on quite a lot, and they were in the playoffs for League One last season. So this season, finishing 17th is probably a bit of a disappointment. So you mentioned that they took the Rotherham strength and conditioning coach. I mean, it may be that they have ambitions to go to at least the championship, if not the Premier League. But I'd say maybe Stephen has ambitions as well, that he can, if not get to the championship or even who knows, the Premier League with Lincoln, that he can get noticed there and doing a good job at Lincoln, that no matter how well he does at Shamrock Rovers, and you mentioned group stage, that was a major disappointment for me last season. I think Rovers should have reached the group stages of the conference. The performances in the playoff round against Flora just were very poor, home and away. They lost both games. And I really hope they can do better this year. And I think they will, actually. But I think no matter how well he does at Rovers, I think if he makes an impact at Lincoln, he's already in England and clubs will see that. And I mean, Lincoln can come up against teams in the League Cup, the FA Cup, etc., in the higher level. And if he can't reach his ambitions with Lincoln, and who knows, maybe he can, then he could certainly get noticed by other clubs. But it's an interesting one.
Yeah, well, I think as well as that, if he has any ambition to manage Ireland one day, that would be a big factor in it if he can go over there and do well. So yeah, look, only time will tell. But look, at the moment anyway, they're sitting in second, and they drew 1-1 with Sligo Rovers. So the Shams played Sligo Rovers, as the Sligo fans call them. But Shamrock Rovers, they took the lead through Andy Lyons, and Jordan Hamilton equalised, and then Gary Buckley got a second yellow laid on to get sent off. But I think at that stage Sligo were hanging on. Apparently they, from what I heard and stuff like that, they just seemed to frustrate Rovers. I heard the pitch wasn't in the best estates, so I think that played a factor as well in terms of the football Shamrock Rovers like to play. They probably didn't get a chance to play like they wanted to. But another goal for Andy Lyons, who's on course to win the Golden Boot by the looks of things.
Yeah, Andy Lyons v Jamie McGonigal. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, well, if he keeps playing the way he's playing, he'd be well up there. But what a season he's having at the moment. But I suppose it's a disappointing result for Shamrock Rovers, considering they were going on a bit of a good run there, and the way Derry were slipping up at points. But now it's kind of a little bit of a bump on the road, but still a lot of games to play. I wouldn't be getting too hung up if I was a Shamrock Rovers fan, to be honest.
No, I wouldn't. I mean, they made up the 5 points that we talked about just a couple of weeks ago on Derry, when it looked like Rovers had the tougher fixtures, and they ground out the wins against Pats and Dundalk, wasn't it? And so they come back to win a point to Derry. Now it's gone out to 3. Look, it's still going to be nip and tuck. They're playing in Tala this month still. It's a long season. It's 36 games. And but it does look like it is between the two of them. It's definitely, I think, 2 points dropped for Shamrock Rovers. I think Sligo Rovers will be delighted with the point. Their form had dipped a bit lately. I know they'd got that late winner against Drogheda, but otherwise they had dropped quite a few points that they would have expected to, really, in games they would have expected to win, particularly at home. And so that's a decent point. And there is certainly no love lost down there. I know there was issues, I think, in the crowd as well. There's no love lost between the fans of the two clubs and the two clubs. I know coming from Limerick, we always get a very warm welcome. We're always welcome in Sligo, but they've often passed comments about the other Rovers, or Shams as they call them. So no love lost there. I don't think Shamrock Rovers get the warm welcome in the Northwest that fans of most other clubs do. But certainly a better point for Sligo Rovers than it was for Shamrock Rovers.
Yeah, I think so. But look, Shamrock Rovers, they're only 3 points behind Derry. So, there's no real danger there. It hasn't been a catastrophic result, really. For Sligo, on the other hand, it keeps them in 4th. But Dundalk both of them by winning their game against Drogheda. Good 4-1 win there. But I think, that was a good result for Sligo, as you said. And Shamrock Rovers, I think that, look, I don't want to be making statements because every week, teams are beating teams and stuff like that. I do still think Shamrock Rovers title to lose, but Derry are doing brilliantly to be in the position they're in. And I hope that they can continue to push Shamrock Rovers right to the wire, because I think that's obviously makes for a great season then. But we'll move on to the Dundalk game, 4-1 victory over Drogheda, with goals come from Darragh Leahy, 2 goals from Darragh Leahy, Pat Hubin and John Martin, and Ryan Brennan scoring for Drogheda late on. But yeah, I think the game was already won at that point. I think it was 3-1 by the time Ryan Brennan scored, and then John Martin scored in the 90th minute. So I would say in recent times that's probably a bit of a shock result, but I don't know. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I don't know about a shock. I mean, well, Drogheda did beat Dundalk earlier in the season, but the only other team to beat Dundalk this season is Shamrock Rovers. So I kind of did expect Dundalk to win. I think that their defeat in United Park was a major surprise to me. And Dundalk had found a bit of form as of late. And as you say, they're up to third in the table now, though they're 6 points behind Shamrock Rovers. They're 9 behind Derry. I don't think they're going to mount a title challenge. And I'm sure if you offered Dundalk third or even fourth spot, I'm sure they'd bite your hand off for that, because I think when you get down to the next level below the top 2, there's 4 clubs there in a battle that'll probably take the other 2 European spots. Appreciate anyone could win the FAI Cup, and who knows, could even be a first division team. But realistically, you'd expect certainly third place in the league, and probably if the FAI Cup is not won by one of the top 3, then that one of those clubs would win it. So there will be the likes of Dundalk, Sligo Rovers, St Pats and Bows in the battle for the European places. I don't think any of them would have any title ambitions at this stage, realistically. But it was a good win for Dundalk. They had a very hard-fought win over Shelbourne last week. Maybe a bit fortunate with some of the refereeing decisions. I think Damien Duff would certainly agree with that. I wasn't there, so I'm not going to comment too much on it, Paul. But this was more of a comfortable win, and a big win, and a very decent crowd at Oriel Park as well. I believe it was an excellent atmosphere on Friday night. So good to see things coming back at Dundalk. Things had gone a bit wrong in recent months, and they certainly seem to have the fans behind them again. And this is more of a rebuilding season. But if they could qualify for Europe, I think it would be considered an excellent season for Dundalk.
Yeah, I think Stephen O'Donnell's doing a brilliant job there at the moment. They all seem to be playing for each other. He's got a bulk of good players in there that have all won things, and I think that leads a good dressing room. We mentioned Pat Hubin, who we believe is definitely one of, if not the best strikers in the league. And I think when you have someone like him up front scoring the goals, you've always got a chance. And I think with him and Macmillan as well, so you've got those 2 in your squad, you're always going to be a threat to teams. And then you've got players like Keith Ward, who's doing unbelievable things with Dundalk as well. They're adding goals all over the pitch. John Martin starting to score for them as well. He scored that goal against Shelbourne to win the game. So they're going strong. I'm just looking here, they've goals for 18, goals against 10, so they're going quite well in that regard. Look, they're sitting in third now after the results of the weekend, so they'll be looking to just kick off from there. We'll move on to Bows actually, and they got a good win. It's probably a win that they needed after the Shamrock Rovers game. Junior scoring again, Dawson Devoy and Promise on Mashare in a 3-0 win at home against the students. So no real shock there. I felt as though Bows were going to win that game. No shock there. UCD not doing too much there, but it's all kind of getting a little bit congested down at the bottom of the table there, because Drogheda are sitting on 13 points, Shelbourne on 12 points after losing to Finn Harps up in Ballybuffet, which is a huge result for Finn Harps, we spoke about that last week, as a 6-pointer. Finn Harps won it. And then UCD are sitting now 13 games, no wins, 4 draws and 9 losses. So for me, they're gone now, in my opinion. You know, you didn't want to say it last week, but I'm saying it now. UCD are gone now.
Yeah, it's not. I think it's looking pretty nailed on, but particularly because the teams above them, Finn Harps, Shelbourne, and Drogheda, who I think we have to count all three as being within range. All three of them are picking up points. They're all getting decent results, and I think it's going to be very difficult for UCD to make up the gap, even on one of them, even to make the playoffs. And it's going to be a long, hard season. The UCD surprised a lot of people, including me, by winning promotion last season, and I think it was always going to be a tough season for them because there are no easy games in the Premier Division, and unfortunately, they're finding that out the hard way.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of teams I think Shelbourne are finding that out as well. You know, as I said, look, great win for Bows. It puts them on 18 points, and they're only 2 points behind Pats and Sligo as well, and they're only 3 points behind Dundalk. So look, it may end up being actually a decent season if they can keep gathering momentum and picking up points there. So they're only 3 points. Everything is just so condensed right now. I mean, there's a big drop off after Bows, and it's Drogheda, you know, then Shells, and there's a point between them two, and then it's Finn Harps, who are only 3 points off Drogheda. And again, if a couple of results go Finn Harps' way, they could be out of that situation, and Shelbourne or Drogheda could drop in there. So there's a lot of games to play. And a lot to play for in points as well to play for. So I'm just going to run through the last game there. Obviously, my team Shelbourne lost 1-0. Barry McNamee scoring the 89th minute, which was huge, absolutely huge for Finn Harps. And we all, like, I don't want to go overboard here, but we've always spoken about the good job that Ollie Horgan has done with a limited resources. But one of the best players in the league consistently year on year is Barry McNamee, and when you have someone like him in your squad, because we were thinking with Dave Webster out of the squad that they'd start to crumble, but that was a great result for them, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was. I was in Tolka on Saturday at the Treaty women's game against Shells, and I was chatting to a couple of the Shells fans who were in Ballybuffet. And well, first of all, I think the only effort on target in the whole game was that Barry McNamee effort in the 89th minute for either side. It was one of those games. Well, I did get the Shelbourne view of it, but it was one of those games that looked destined to finish scoreless, and they certainly weren't happy with the length of the grass or the state of the pitch in Ballybuffet. You were talking about Sligo earlier on. Although I've been going to Ballybuffet since 79-80 season, and I can't remember the pitch being in good condition ever either. But it was a crucial win for Harps. And as I said, Ollie Horgan is doing an incredible job there. UCD actually have to visit all three of their next 3 away games are actually against Harps, Drogheda and Shells. So maybe if they could win a couple of those, we might think differently. But I do think UCD are gone. It's going to be a real battle between Harps, Drogheda, and Shells. They're all capable of picking up points, and there is a long way to go. There isn't that much between them. I do think the games between those 3 teams will be absolutely crucial, and they may well determine who ends up in the playoff spot. But whoever ends up in the playoff spot will still have a serious chance of retaining their Premier Division status.
Sorry, I muted myself there. I think that's right. You know, imagine UCD could win those 3 games, and then we were sitting here with egg on our face. You know, so
I don't think they will. I don't think it will. No. Part of the disadvantage if you're UCD is if you go to the Belfield Bowl, you've got a perfect pitch to play on. You don't have an intimidating, hostile crowd. You're just made very welcome. Everything is spot on. Dressing rooms are nice. Everything is laid out. it's not necessarily the same if you go to Ballybofey or if you go to United Park. They're tough places, and Tolka is not easy as well. Or the Shells do a lot better away lately. But if you go to Ballybofey, even if you're Shamrock Rovers or Derry City, you have to battle and you have to fight tooth and nail for every point you get, for everything. And the same with United Park. It's a really tight pitch. The fans are on your back, and they're tough places for anyone to go and get a result. Whereas Belfield, it's nice. It's a lovely pitch. If you want to play football, they're going to try and play football as well. You certainly won't get kicked off it in Belfield. And okay, I don't know what way to put it like that, but it doesn't help when you're in a relegation battle. If your home ground is someplace like Belfield as opposed to United Park or Ballybofey.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And the fact that they don't really have fans, like people might take offense to that. I don't really care.
No, they do have fans. I mean, I know they do have fans, and they don't have as many
fans. Put it that way.
They just a couple. They have. I mean, I know one of them, Stephen. He follows them everywhere, and but. I suppose they don't have what I would say is hostile fans. I mean,
they might be hostile after what I just said, though.
No, I don't think they're actually. They're pretty nice guys, and you're very welcome in UCD. They don't even need. There's no segregation in the bowl. They don't really need segregation or anything like that, and you're certainly not going to have any of them invading the pitch or any of them throwing flares or anything at you. I don't think the FEI would ever have a complaint or a problem with fans at UCD causing issues. And it's just, look, it's a nice place to go. If you go to UCD, you're guaranteed to see really good quality football. If you want to go as a neutral, they're going to pass the ball. I don't think we'll accuse Ollie Horgan's teams too often of being a good passing team on an excellent surface in Finn Park. But I'll tell you this much. You go to Finn Park and you'll have to battle for absolutely everything you get. And you'll never see an Ollie Horgan team coming off the pitch without every player giving 100%. And even if they got through Ollie Horgan, you got to get through Paul Hegarty then, which is just as bad. So, they're very different. And if you're in a relegation battle, my money would be on Finn Harps rather than UCD.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think it's the UCD and then either Shelbourne, Drogheda or Finn Harps. I'm hoping Shelbourne can start picking up points again. They've been probably unlucky, I suppose, in recent weeks, but I don't know if that's me being biased. I think more often than not, I'm quite impartial on that, and I'd be honest. I thought we were unlucky against Dundalk, to be honest with you. I didn't get to see the game against Finn Harps. Obviously, I was in Richmond Park, so I didn't even watch the game back. I haven't even seen the goal by Barry McNamee, but it was a very disappointing result, considering I felt as though, you mentioned earlier, Shells play better when they're away at the moment for whatever reason, but just didn't seem to get going at all by the sounds of it. And that kind of shows when the last kick, or the only kick of the game was the goal. The only shot on target, I think, was the goal. But we'll move on to the first division, and obviously we've 2 rounds of games, so we'll quickly run through the rounds of games, because obviously you were at Treaty and Galway on Friday night in the Markets Field. And yeah, what a comeback from Galway, because you were 2-0 up, double from Dean George, and then you can tell me the rest.
Oh, I don't want to talk about the rest, Paul. Look, for 75 minutes, it was our best performance of the season. I mean, and Galway played well. We went to goal up. We were pressed back for a lot of the game, and Dean George with the first in the first half. Delighted to get in at half time. Came out in the second half. We were pushed back. Scored on a breakaway. Dean George made it 2-0 and on about 63 minutes. And it did appear to be game over. Galway seemed to have lost the impetus. And for the next 10 minutes or so, they didn't really put us under the pressure they'd been putting us under before that. And 15 minutes to go, Ronan Manning, it was a brilliant strike. And we've said this many times before, goals change games, and that totally changed the impetus. Now, I would say as well, Treaty the squad's been pretty threadbare. Dean George and Joe Collins were taken off, which was probably a mistake. They were missing. Certainly Joe Collins was missed out of the midfield. But after the first goal went in, it was all Galway. And I think it was Alex Murphy headed in unmarked at the far post from a free kick. And Stephen Walsh, the defender turned striker, he scored against us up in Eamon DC Park, and he got the winner with 2 minutes to go. So it was an absolute sickener as a Treaty fan. And I know we're maybe supposed to be impartial, but you can't really be on occasions like this. And look, we were everyone I was talking to in the homestand in the Marketsfield were absolutely gutted. We're just gutted afterwards. It was a real kick in the teeth. And I don't think Galway deserved it. I think they were a bit fortunate even to beat us up in Eamon DC Park. But then that's what John Caulfield's teams do. And it's not luck. It can't be luck because it happens too often. And for me, I can go on and talk about Cork City, but for me, Cork look to be on a different level to Galway. They look the best team in the division. But Galway consistently win games they've no right to win. They battle. Talk about Ollie Horgan's teams battling. John Caulfield's teams sure know how to battle. And Galway have some really good players. They have a good budget, and they always find a way to win. And that's how they're still in the title race in the first division. But from a Treaty point of view, it was bitterly disappointing. I would say that they're an amateur squad on a fraction of the budget, the likes of Galway and Cork and Waterford, who are all full-time. So maybe you shouldn't expect too much, but when you're 2-0 up with 15 minutes to go, you certainly would expect to get something out of the game.
Yeah. Well, I think it's disappointing, obviously, from a Treaty perspective, but I suppose just keeping things at the top of the table, Cork win 4-1 against Longford. I suppose in some ways it's kind of good for Treaty, because if they're trying to stay near Longford in the table, although the playoff spot wouldn't really matter in that concern, but I'm sure Treaty want to finish up as high as possible in the league, because the likelihood is the top two is pretty much spoken for, you probably say, at this stage. So it's kind of a race for all the other teams after that. I think if you're looking at it, Cork just beat Longford, who seemed to be their biggest threat for a bit, 4-1, and they blew them away. Michael Barker with an own goal there, and then Barry Coffey with a double, and Dara Crowley, whatever way you want to say it, with an 88-minute goal. Sam Verdon did score in the 43rd minute for Longford, but it was actually they'd actually taken the lead against Cork, but looks at there. So they were actually 1-0 up and then conceded 4. But I think that goes to show you don't score against the monster, you don't piss them off, and they come and punish you. But you saw Cork on Monday against Treaty. So if you're kind of looking at between Galway and Cork there, what are the main differences?
So, I mean, just one thing on that Longford game. I spoke to some of the Cork fans on Monday, and they all said that 4-1 was not a fair reflection in the game, that Longford played really well. They deserved their lead, and they caused a lot of problems for Cork City. For me, I mean, I've seen both teams twice, and Cork, they weren't actually as impressive on Monday. We held them for over an hour, and it was really only in the 10 minutes before half-time that we actually were under pressure. But Rory Keating got a superb goal, went on a great run and shot. And once that went in, they just took over. They scored 2 more. There's a lot of goals in that Cork team. They look like they have quality all over the park. They have a really good goalkeeper in David Harrington, son of Phil. Some really good. They're really solid at the back. Jonas Hakkinen, who really impressed me in the Marketsfield, was only on the bench. He came off the bench. They've Ali Gilchrist at the back. Cian Bargery again. Bagsy is a really good wing back. Again, he only came off the bench, but that may have been squad rotation. In midfield, they're really good. Matt Healy has been a real find for them. He looks quality to me. He runs the show, and as I said, they've goals coming from everywhere, and they've scored 31 goals this season, which is, I think, 10 more than any other team in the division. They look the best team without question, but they haven't really. Well, I suppose the question would be when they're really tested. So Galway have been grinding out results. I mean, Cork's goal difference is plus 25, Galway's is plus 11. But in reality, there's nothing between them. Galway are 3 points down, but they have a game in hand. And I was looking at the fixtures until they meet at the end of the month in DC Park, and you'd expect both teams to win out. And that's going to be an absolutely massive match, because even though Cork are blowing teams away and Galway are grinding out the wins, I don't know, if you're going to win a title, there are going to be games when you got to grind them out. And I would have every faith in John Caulfield's side grinding them out. If I wanted someone to win 4-0, I'd have every faith in Cork City, because they just look head and shoulders above everyone in the division. And I wouldn't be surprised if they went up to Galway and won 3 or 4-0 either. But it's going to be a battle. I would expect Cork to win the division, because I think they're the best side and they look to be the best team. But Galway will probably mount a challenge. Waterford, they're the other full-time big budget side in the division. They've got to be majorly disappointed. They're 12 points. I know they've changed managers. They're 12 points behind Cork. They're already out of the promotion race. The title race, I should say that. They might, if they went on a brilliant run, they might catch one of the two, but they can't. I can't see them catching both Galway and Cork. They will definitely be in the playoffs. They will almost certainly finish third. I actually think Longford will probably finish fourth. They've come down from the Premier Division. They don't have the budget of the other three, but they are very competitive. And they're probably, even though we drew 0-0 with them in Bishopsgate, I think they're probably just a bit ahead of Treaty. I think the battle for the fifth and the last playoff spot is between Treaty, Wexford and Bray Wanderers. And I'd make Treaty slight favourites for that at the moment, but I think there's a long way to go.
Yeah, there's just a lot to process there. I suppose we'll just kind of go through the other games that went ahead on Friday. We'll move on to Monday then, and then I just want to talk about Bray, because we're going to be talking about them now, and the issues with Pat Devlin and the fans there. So obviously Bray drew 1-1 with Cove at home on Friday night, and then Wexford beat Athlone 3-0, which was a good result for them. Adam Wells, Dinny Corcoran getting his 100th goal, I think, in League of Ireland football, and Jack Doherty just securing the win there. Then we'll move on to Monday's games. We spoke obviously about Treaty and Cork. The 2-0 victory for Galway. Goals coming from David Hurley and Maxwell Hemmings. And then Waterford beat Athlone as well. Everyone seems to be beating Athlone. Richard Taylor did get sent off in that game. Second yellow there, just on 44 minutes. So then it was Wexford and Bray then in a 1-1 with Harry Groom scoring and Ben Feeney scoring for Bray as the away side there. But just to kind of finish on that, and we'll touch maybe on the table as well, the league table. But just, I imagine you saw that video. I think everybody saw that video. What were your thoughts on it? Like, I don't know whether it was disrespectful from the fans, or was it a bit out of control by the manager? I wish I had a bit more context to the situation. But looking at the video, I kind of felt sorry for Pat Devlin. I don't know if I was right to feel sorry for him, or right to feel sorry, or right to be annoyed for the fans. This is obviously a big mess because of the Cabo Bray thing. And yeah, it just seems to be not going away anytime soon by the looks of it, with him still in charge there, you know.
Yeah, look, I mean, Devo's been around the league for so long. I've huge respect for him, and he's done an incredible job. And I don't think you can name anyone that's done more as a manager for Bray Wanderers than Pat Devlin. Now, I know he left, and he's obviously only come back with this merger with Cabo. So, look, I know there's issues there, and there's other things. I really hate to see fans chanting for a manager they wanted. I mean, they were chanting, "We want Devo out," which, okay, they haven't been on a great run, but I think they missed a penalty with a couple of minutes to go. Otherwise, they would have pulled off a really good win in Wexford, and they're still in the battle. They've lost 5 of their 13 games. And I know they had a terrible start. They were hammered by Cork on the opening night, but so has a lot of other teams since then. And they're not that far off. They actually have problems scoring goals. They look really good elsewhere on the pitch. But yeah, I know there's issues with the Cabo merger. I know a lot of the Bray fans aren't happy about that. There's different, I don't know, whatever it is, factions there. It doesn't look good when the manager, the video doesn't look good from Devo's point of view either. From challenging the fans, it's probably better just to ignore them and to walk off.
It looked like he was, like, I don't know whether he was looking to confront them or fight them. Some people were saying he's looking to fight them. For me, it looked like he was just looking to confront them, as if to say, but you can't do that as a manager. You can't go up and confront fans, because ultimately that then means the writing's on the walls sometimes, more often than not. Maybe he's feeling the pressure.
Yeah, look, I imagine there's a lot of pressure there. They probably would have expected. They were in the playoffs last year. I was at the game in Dalymount against UCD, and it could have gone either way. It's another case of where goals change games, and UCD got the goal to go ahead, and who knows, Bray could have been in the Premier Division. Things had gone differently that night. It was certainly, the game was in the balance until the first goal. So they would have expected, I would have expected them to be back in the playoffs. They're not that far. They're 4 points off the playoff. They're 4 points behind Treaty. Treaty's next game is actually against Bray Wanderers in the Marcus Field. But Bray have a game, Bray at home to Waterford, actually, before that. So I'll tell you, it'll be an interesting one in the Carlisle grounds on Friday night. But they're not that far off it. But I know there's other issues behind the scenes and everything. But it doesn't look good when your manager is confronting fans. But I mean, Pat Devlin has been some servant to the League of Ireland and to Bray Wanderers in particular. And if you look at the players he's brought on, discovered, Damien Duff obviously springs to mind, but there's a lot more than that. I couldn't actually do him justice off the top of my head, but he's been some man in this league, and it's sad to see a video like that. I don't think he was trying to certainly fight any of the fans, but I think he wanted to make his point, and he obviously feels very strongly about it. And Wexford aren't a bad side, and a 1-1 draw in Wexford. I appreciate the missed. Or in fairness, sorry, the Wexford goalie made a very good penalty save. I actually did. I watched it, and it was a good save. And I mean, if that penalty had gone in, Bray would have won 2-1. They'd be ahead of Wexford in the table. They'd be breathing down Treaty's necks, and the fans would probably have gone home singing on the bus. So it's fine margins, and Wexford are actually really decent. You mentioned Dinny Corcoran getting his 100th goal. They've got some really good players. Jack Doherty ran the show on the Markets Field. Treaty were very, very fortunate to beat Wexford a couple of weeks ago with a 93rd minute penalty. And so a point in Wexford isn't a bad result. Appreciate maybe the home draw with Cove. They would have expected to have done better than that, and they haven't won a game. I think it's one win in. Sorry, they haven't won a game for about 6 or 7 games, so that does put the pressure on. But it's not good to see in Bray, and it will be interesting to watch over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, I think, we kind of glossed over Wexford a little bit there. I mean, they did beat Athlone 3-0, and then they went and played Bray a couple of days later, 1-1. They're kind of in and around there. There's only 3 points separating the two teams there. I think Bray are not in danger of kind of, I wouldn't imagine they'd finish below over Athlone at this stage. I think they've got good players there, and I think they'll probably start picking up points. But if they don't, then I would fear for Pat Devlin in terms of if he'll stay in the job or not. But I suppose we'll leave that one to the fans in the comments. And even if you're a Bray fan, you might have been offended by us saying whether it was disgraceful or not. We didn't actually say, we said we don't know if it was disgraceful because we don't know the context behind it. So if you were there, or you know a bit more about it, why not let us know in the comments or drop us a message, so we can talk about it maybe next time, or we might do another show on it. So yeah, let us know your thoughts in the comments. I think we'll leave it at that. We've covered pretty much everything there. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll speak to you all soon. Thanks for watching.